I want to talk about NIO stock and break down how I see NIO moving for the end of the year. Why I think that although October is not always the strongest time for NIO as a company, in terms of like fundamentals and deliveries and things like that, I believe that NIO has lots and lots of potential for November/December and even January of 2024. I believe there's going to be major upside coming into the markets, possibly, so long as nothing like too horrible happens to the economy. As long as there's no like major black swan events, I'm still super bullish right now, and I think that that's most likely what's going to happen as time goes on. So I want to break down SPY for you guys and talk about how this relates to NIO. I'm going to break down some data involving NIO's sales and why this is going to be very important for the end of the year, and how I see NIO moving as time goes on. Before I say anything about this, though, let me just mention a few things. I'm personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. Now, this offer ends in just about 8 days, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market in NIO. So, going back to the charts, guys, I want to talk about something very important. Let's first start right here. So, as a reminder to everyone, NIO is a stock that tends to be heavily affected by the overall market. When we look at the market and we look at monthly seasonality for NIO and etc., you could see that compared to SPY, NIO right here has very similar trends. And if we actually look at them next to one another, you could see that right here, NIO kind of like pumped with SPY during this trend. They were uptrending together. They came down together. They pumped together. They came down, pumped a little bit. SPY was outperforming NIO for some time, but then NIO started to catch up to SPY. Then they came down together as they tend to move. And then, like I said before, if the market is very bullish for the end of the year, NIO is likely going to follow the trend. Now let's look at the QQQ next to NIO. Check this out. They came down together, they pumped together, they came down together, they pumped together, they came down together. They first off, the QQQ was pumping first. NIO was a little bit weaker during like the middle of the year because of some weak deliveries, but then NIO started to catch up as time went on. Then the QQQ has been on a downtrend and NIO has been downtrending too. So the point I'm trying to make is that the market moves on a very similar algorithm, and this algorithm could dictate how NIO moves for the longer term as well. And if we could dissect what the market's likely going to do for the next few months, this could give us a good idea of what NIO may end up doing, as NIO is going to be dictated by it. Now let's go over some data. I want to remind you all about something else. When you look at SPY, first off, check this out. Look at SPY on the monthly chart. You will notice that we're actually not necessarily extremely bearish. I know a lot of people are super bearish, saying the market's going to crash. Well, remember, if everyone's expecting a market crash, if everyone is super bearish, will the market truly crash? Well, yes, the market could have some corrections here and there. It still is possible, but is it going to straight up crash to some crazy low levels? An example would be, look at Friday. When so many people were shorting the market, what happened to the SPY? This thing was up 1.18%, at least as of right now. My point is, the current setup looks bullish on SPY, and it's very probable, considering that it's going to be an election year coming up. Are they really going to let the market crash right before the year ends, or is it more probable that the market starts pumping? SPY tends to have a SATS rally. We tend to be very bullish near the end of the year, and it's very probable we're going to see that again. I also want to add that we have a giant cup and handle on the monthly on SPY. It's very clean, and it looks like here's what's going to happen. So October, there's no guarantee that we're done, with the bottom in October just yet. There could be more downside. There could be more sideways price action for October. That's a real possibility. But as we approach the end of October, I believe that there's likely going to be upside. Now, this also depends on earnings. We have some big earnings coming out for like Apple and all these different companies. So we're going to be watching that very carefully. But for now, just know from a technical standpoint, the market looks bullish overall. Could we come down more? Yes, we can. We could still see downside in October, guys. I'm not really running away from that narrative. But the point I'm trying to make is that November/December slash even like a part of January are likely going to be very bullish for this market, looking at this setup. That is what this is suggesting. You look at this, we have a nice cup and handle. Handle's just barely forming. Could we, trade sideways for a bit longer? Yes, we can, but this market's getting ready to launch, in my opinion, for the end of the year. Looking at this setup and looking at the fact that, those market makers know exactly what's going on with all the shorts. They know most people are going to keep trying to short the market, expecting some kind of crash. This is all a trap. When everyone turns so bearish on the market, that's when they're going to be pumping us, especially during like the second to third week of October, especially. Everyone's going to turn really bearish if we see more downside. If SPY breaks below 420. It could still happen, guys. But I'm trying to warn you that that's going to likely lead to a massive run for the end of the year. What does this mean for NIO? If you look at NIO's monthly chart, we're still very flat right now. If you look at the chart, it's been downtrending like crazy. But if anything, NIO is trying to base, and I do see potential for upside. One of the reasons why is because, first off, SPY, the QQQ, these things could have a big effect on how NIO ends up moving. NIO has been sinking for way too long, and it's long due for this thing to start bouncing soon. Additionally, I just want to add that there's a possibility that NIO is on a change in market structure. So we hit this bottom at $7. We bounced off of it, we came down, and we established a higher low. If we hold above 7, we could be establishing a change in structure, and NIO could start uptrending from here. On top of this, I just want to add that look at NIO sales historically. Historically, what tends to happen is either during September's or October's, we tend to see NIO sales drop a little bit. So let's start off with like 2018, which would be like these gray looking rectangles. You will see that September and October were kind of like flat, and we saw some big increases in November/December. 2019 came, we saw NIO sales dropping a little bit. September saw a bit of a drop, October was flat, November was flat, and December was strong. 2020 came, and you guys can see right here, for 2020, you could see that this thing, we saw sales going up and up and up and up. They continued to increase. They dropped a little bit during this October period, kind of flat, before they went right back up. Then if we look at 2021, sales dropped in February. March was kind of weak. April, May, a little bit weak. And then finally, as we hit September, there was an increase, decrease, a big drop in October. Then November and December were relatively strong. 2022, okay, same thing, strong. We were a little bit weak around April, May because of the lockdowns, but then June was strong. July was a little weaker. August was strong. September was a little strong. And then October was the weak month. And then November and December became stronger. Now for 2023, how do I think this is going to go? Well, there's a pattern. If you guys were like listening carefully, you will notice that we tend to see sales slow down during either September or October. We saw sales slow down this September, so it is possible that sales are going to be strong for all of October/November/December. But that's not what always happens. So I'm going to be like a little open-minded for October. Anything could happen for October. It could be a little weak, it could be a little strong, but I'm leaning in the direction it's going to be very close to September. However, historically, what happens every single year? The answer is November/December tend to be the strongest months for NIO for the year. Okay, so we're going to see a big boost in deliveries, most likely coming very soon. And this time around, deliveries really affect NIO's share price, and we're likely going to see some upside thanks to that. Now, with that said, okay, with all this data in mind, the fact that the market will likely see some upside in November/December, it does depend on economic factors and what happens with earnings and etc. But I'm leaning in that direction still just by looking at the technicals. On top of that, NIO tends to be very strong towards the end of the year. I believe NIO is going to prevail and give us some strong looking numbers. So there is potential for upside for this company as we hit November and December. And I believe, I can't predict it exactly like where the heck it's going to be going, but I can tell you, I believe NIO is going to be back in the double digits. I believe it's going to be breaking these highs of 15, and we could see this thing get very close to these much higher levels. That's where I'm leaning. That's the direction I'm leaning in. And I do believe it's going to get closer to like $20 or so towards the end of the year. You may think it sounds crazy, but just be patient and you will see how crazy this market is near the end of the year. I think that at NIO's time is coming. So for the short term, okay, for the super short term, there could be a bounce coming to the market. It's a small one. NIO could make an attempt to hit gap resistance or try to fill this gap. All right. But that doesn't mean NIO is not going to see more downside for the later weeks in October. NIO could pump a little bit and come right back down, trade sideways. Deliveries for October may not also be like the strongest. We don't know for sure. But when the November/December numbers come out, right, Numbers are going to be very good for NIO most likely, and NIO has insane upside potential to start pumping back to the highs we saw previously, 14, 15, 16. We hit 16 just like in like August, right? It wasn't really that far back. So, we're going to break 16 most likely. I think we're going to see this thing get very close to 20 by the time we get to December. I believe that's very probable, and I think I'm leaning in that direction. And I believe that there's major upside coming to this company based off all these different factors, from SPY's monthly charts, SPY's technicals, which still look bullish for the end of the year. We could be bearish for October still, depending on earnings and other factors. But I'm talking about the very end of the year when the market should rally, as the odds do favor that. Secondly, don't forget about the QQQ and the NASDAQ seasonality. Fourth, don't forget about NIO's overall uh, deliveries and etc. And don't forget about all these different factors that really affect how the market moves. All right, so I hope this video was helpful for everyone. I thank you all so much for listening. There is definitely a lot of potential for NIO in this market. I still believe in the company as a whole with the new EC6 coming out. I think sales are just going to continue to go up as time goes on. Another factor affecting NIO is going to be its earnings. So we'll see how earnings goes. The last time earnings came out, it didn't really affect NIO that much. So it's not always a guaranteed major market moving event for NIO. We'll just wait and see. But for now, this is the direction I'm leaning towards. Could the market be a little bit sideways, a little weak for October? Yes. But I am leaning in the direction of a massive short squeeze for November/December, and I think that's very, very probable. Okay, guys, so that's what I have for this one. I thank you all so much for listening. Have an absolutely spectacular rest of the day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you, and peace out.